Hello, my name is Leona Brauser, and we moved to Boca Raton in 1985.
Hello, Leona. My name is Sandy Altner. I'm a volunteer with the Boca Raton Historical Society and Museum. And this interview today is for the Jewish history, the oral history project that the museum is doing to capture the history of the Jews here in Boca Raton. And today is November the 9th, 2016. And we are at Lynn University in Boca Raton, and it is such a pleasure to have an opportunity to meet you. You have had a very busy life within the Jewish community and a very busy family life by the sounds of things as well. Let's start by talking about where you moved here with whom?
Well, we moved here, my husband and I.
What's your husband's name?
Leon. We're Leon and Leona. We moved here to Florida in 1973. We lived in Hollywood, Florida for 12 years, and then in '85 moved to Boca.
What is it that brought you to Florida in the first place, you and Leon?
Well, for us, it was a business that brought us here. My husband had been an automobile dealer in New York, and quite successful, and then we looked for something else, and we made a wonderful move.
What business did you have here?
My husband bought an alarm company. It was called Kurt's Alarm. It was a 40-year-old company, and we worked together for a while, and we grew it very big. And in 1985, Wayne Heisinger bought it, and so that's when we decided to move to Boca.
When you first came here, first of all, where did you move here from?
Woodmere, Long Island was where we lived.
And why did you choose Florida?
Oh, Florida chose me. It's a very interesting story if you have a minute or so.
Of course we do.
My father, who was divorced from my mother, lived in Florida, and we lived in Woodmere, Long Island, and he died in 1972. And I flew down for the funeral, and I stayed overnight at a cousin's house after the funeral, and the next morning the cousin took me to the airport. And when I was on the plane, and the plane was flying, I looked down and I said, "My God, it's beautiful here. It is so beautiful." When I got off the plane and my husband was waiting for me, in those days you could wait at the gate in 1973. Yeah, that was 72 actually. And he was waiting at the gate, and the first words I said to him was, "Honey, we're moving to Florida." That's how it happened.
So how quickly after that did you end up moving?
He had been looking for a business, but we were looking in New Jersey, and I kept saying, "I like a warm climate." And so we found a great business, and it was in Fort Lauderdale at that time.
So how is it that you chose Fort Lauderdale?
Well, we chose Hollywood. We lived in Emerald Hills in Hollywood for 12 years, and then I heard about Boca, and I wanted to build a house, and there was a lot of places that I could go to, and I researched it, and we wound up in a place called Boca Grove Country Club, and we lived there for 12 years.
When you first came down in 1973 and settled then in Fort Lauderdale, what did you find, Leona, in the way of a Jewish community here?
Not much. I didn't find much, and because of that, and because of my background as a Hadassah member, I started a Hadassah group in Hollywood. And that's how I met Jewish women. And then we joined the local synagogue, and there wasn't that much doing. In our town, I think in Hollywood at that time, there were maybe 3 synagogues. And here now in Boca, there must be at least a dozen.
And I think more. And when you first then moved to Boca, that would have been in the 1980s then?
85.
85. So what kind of community, how would you describe the Boca Raton Jewish community in 1985? What did you see here?
Well, because I have been a volunteer for Hadassah and other organizations. Right away, a friend of mine who lived in Boca, who was part of the Federation at that time, she called me immediately. We had known each other from New York, and she said, "Leona, I want you to be part of the Federation." I didn't even know what that was all about. I knew Federation, but I didn't know the Boca Federation. And P.S., that was 85. A few years later, I was Women's Division President of Women's part of Federation.
The name of your friend?
My name of my friend was Dottie Lipson. Lovely lady.
And with in coming to Boca, was it a difficult transition for you to move from Hollywood to Boca?
It was not a difficult transition at all. My kids were already out and having graduated, one or two of them from college at that time. No, it was not a transition. It was a lovely transition.
How would you describe to me the Jewish community in Boca Raton in that time period, in the early 80s, mid 80s? What did you see here?
Well, we immediately joined B'nai Torah, which is a lovely synagogue. It wasn't as large as it is now, and as many people. It has thousands of people belong to it now. How did I find it? I found it warm, and we celebrated holidays, and we were not synagogue goers, let's say, but we did go on holidays, and we integrated very well with the Jewish community.
Was there a large Jewish community at that time?
No, and there wasn't a large Jewish community at Boca Grove, where we had moved to, but more and more people kept coming.
What do you think, was there anything in the way of anti-Semitism that you experienced here in Boca Raton?
I personally had one experience with anti-Semitism, and I can only vaguely recall it now because that was probably at least 25 years ago. I was still living in Boca Grove at that time, and I went to the bank across the street, and I must have pulled into a parking space, and I didn't know that someone else was waiting for it. I don't know if they were waiting for it or not. When I got out of my car, someone said, "You dirty Jew." How did they know I was Jewish? First of all, well, I drove a Mercedes, okay. But that was my only experience. I was scared stiff when that happened.
When you had first then moved here, did you find that you had all of the Jewish access to Jewish foods, access to things that you wanted, things for the holidays? Did you feel that you were capable?
You had to go a little outside of the community. If you were kosher, you had to go into Delray to the kosher butcher. There was no kosher butcher at that time here. Now it's just wonderful, all kinds of kosher things. No, you had to go outside of the community to get certain Jewish items.
And other than that one incident with anti-Semitism?
Nothing ever happened again.
Okay. Did you feel that Boca at that time looked like a Jewish community?
It was starting to look like it, but no, it did not feel like my northern Jewish community. It was just growing then.
But you helped to change so many things because of your enthusiasm for Judaism and your tremendous organizational skills.
Thank you.
And enthusiasm for getting people organized. Tell me a little bit about not just the Hadassah thing that started with Hadassah, but very quickly with Federation.
Well, let me just tell you that it was because of Hadassah that I became a leader, because in 1954, when I joined Hadassah, you were able to take something called leadership courses, and I learned to be a leader. And so that helped me even to be able to speak in public, because public speaking is something that most people are so afraid of. But ask me the question again.
How is it that you established yourself? Like you grew very quickly in the leadership in the community.
Okay.
So what were the kinds of things that interested you to take on?
Immediately, this friend of mine, Dottie Lipson, who had been already the women's division president of Federation, had called me, and I followed her as women's division president. And so therefore my life took that direction. And Federation in this area was then and is now especially a fantastic organization helping Jewish people all over, not only in our area, but all over the world.
What were some of the particular activities that interested you and that you had an opportunity to spearhead?
For us, or for me and my husband, Zionism was always important. We are strong Zionists, and Israel. We had the opportunity through my work in Federation. I went as a leader a few times to Israel, once to Russia, once to Lodispoli, Italy, and seeing Jewish communities all over the world. The reason that it was able to happen was because of my being involved with this federation.
How did the community respond to some of the things? Can you tell me about some of the different activities that were going on at Federation at that time that you felt were particularly important to develop here in Boca?
First of all, there's the Donna Klein School. That was originally one of the first things on the campus. There's JARC, there's the Jewish Association for Residential Care. There are so many other facets. One thing that I really liked was when they developed a food pantry. The food pantry delivers food to people in the Boca Raton area and in the Delray area as well, people who may never be able to get out to go shopping. And that really touched my heart.
When you were first starting to see the different needs of families and of people in different situations here, what struck you as the greatest need when you were first getting involved in Federation?
The greatest need probably was to promote the feeling of Judaism and Zionism amongst the young people in the community. And that's certainly, when I was president, I was much younger in 1980, when was I president? 79 to 81, I was much younger. And that image helped bring in younger people who then, maybe some of them didn't even know much about Federation as such. But now there are, in our Federation, there are an amazing amount of young women. And I think, yes, I was one of the pioneers who helped develop that.
Education, many of the people I've talked with, and particularly the women who came here with young families, one of the first things they've identified to me certainly was education and Jewish education to make it available for children. What was here in 1985 in that way?
In
and Donna Klein was just starting?
1985, Donna Klein was the only one on the campus. Then Hillel came after that, way after that. And but to get to your question, Jewish education is one of the most important things in my life, and my husband has instilled that in me as well. Because, and one of the reasons is we have one Orthodox son. And so in 1985, the same year that we moved to Boca Raton, our Orthodox son asked us to endow a Jewish school. And so we have the Leon and Leona Brauser Maimonides Academy with 400 students in the Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale area. So that, I must say, Jewish education is a main thing for us.
And particularly to branch into in your family, different flavors of Judaism, if we can say it in that way, because you're not...
I'm not religious, but my son is, his 3 children are, both of his daughters are married to rabbis, and my other 2 sons are not religious, but they certainly belong to temples and synagogues and so forth.
Let's talk a little bit about this delicious variety of how people observe Judaism or how they identify as Jewish, whether it's from a cultural perspective, an ethnic perspective, or a religious perspective. Do you find that in Boca today that there's room for all of this, or is it
Absolutely,
sometimes,
absolutely. From Chabad to Orthodox to Reform to every branch of Judaism is represented in Boca Raton, a fantastic place for Jewish people.
Why did it become such an attraction for people to move here? What did you hear from people?
I think the Federation actually was a very big help. Yes, the Federation, and also when the Orthodox branch moved to an area called Montoya Circle, that brought in a lot of Orthodox people. And it's true, Jewish people like to live amongst Jewish people. Not only, but certainly we have certain things in common. And I think the Federation and the school availability of schools, Jewish schools.
When you look at the life that you had in Long Island all those years ago, and then moving here, and what you found lacking in a Jewish community at the time when you first came here, how does it compare today?
There was never anything lacking in Woodmere, Long Island, because that was a very Jewish community, the 5 towns. Yes, when I moved to Hollywood, Florida first in 1973, there wasn't much Jewish culture at that time. And I guess that's how things evolve. That's how everything has changed and evolved. And those of us who came wanted more. And so we created the cultural part and the social part and the schools and so forth.
When you think about Boca now and its Jewishness and compare it to the days before you moved, your home in Long Island, is this as Jewish now as it was then in terms of what you enjoyed up north?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a wonderful place to live. I think for everybody, not only Jewish people.
What makes Boca a wonderful place to live?
It's clean. It's a little crowded. It's a little crowded. The traffic is a little tough lately. You know, when I moved to Boca in '85, there was no shopping center. When Bloomingdale's came to Boca, that might have been a draw too for people who came from New York who missed it. But we have wonderful shopping. We have wonderful restaurants. I think it's just a wonderful place to live.
What can you tell me about how the different Jewish communities get along, and what has been your experience working in Federation?
They get along marvelously. Every single branch, the Orthodox, certainly the Reformed, every rabbi, I've seen these rabbis hug each other at events. Yes, there is no conflict between any of the branches of Judaism here.
Do you think that's different than what we would see in other communities in America?
Possibly. I think maybe one of the reasons might be is a number of the rabbis are young and they think young. And when you think younger, you think you want more peace in the world. And you want to branch out and not only stay secluded. That's why all of the rabbis that I know here are friendly with each other.
You talk about some of the programs and some of the community needs that Federation got behind, and certainly one of them has been education, and another one has been the Jewish Association for Residential Care. And we had the pleasure of talking with Dr. Deborah Hallow about this.
Oh, wonderful.
What is it about providing for people who are special?
I'll tell you what it is. These are developmentally delayed youngsters, and some of them are not youngsters. They're adults and even older adults. My niece happens to be there. My niece, Leona Brauser, is there, and she has a wonderful life there. She's already, I think she's probably in her 50s, and she works. She can use a cash register. She can make change. They are so wonderful in handling people who are developmentally delayed. And I see these people when I go over there, they are so happy. They are so happy, and their parents are so happy because they know that their children, who are adults mostly now, are taken care of.
And that they will be.
And they will be.
What are the other projects that you have been involved with over the years that have really taken hold of you right to the very center of you?
I have one major project that took hold of me. It's a project that I started for Hadassah. And I started something called their annual giving program. We didn't know what it was going to be when it started, and I took the idea from Federation, because Hadassah as an organization never had an annual gift. Federation has an annual gift. So I started something called Keepers of the Gate, and it's a $1,000 a year gift to Hadassah that you say you can give as long as you are able to give it. And I'm sorry I didn't wear my Keeper's pin today, but I am so proud of the fact that over $45 million has been raised in the past 20 years.
Just here in Boca?
Since I started. Not only here in Boca, no, all over the country.
That's wonderful.
It is.
So there's an international stamp on Boca too, in some of the different programs, certainly, that the ones that you've been involved in and other people have been involved in. What are those, why is it that Boca ends up being a place where you can have the success with that kind of a program?
Because people want it. And when you want something, you work towards it. That's why the synagogues are successful. That's why the schools are successful. They only hire the proper people, the proper teachers, the proper principal, the proper people who are dedicated to making that facility the best.
Certainly there are men and women and children involved in volunteerism in Boca Raton Jewish causes, I would say. But I would like to ask you about the special role of women, because a lot of times women don't seek attention to or a pat on the back for anything they might be doing. What can you tell me about the women of Boca Raton who have shaped the Jewish community here?
I don't think that we seek a pat on the back at all. It's a certain feeling of fulfillment when you know you are helping somebody that you will never see and that you will never know, but somebody who is in need, and you have helped that person. And this is such a marvelous thing. I have loved being a volunteer for 62 years. And since I was not a professional, I was not a teacher, I was a legal secretary when I was younger, but I did not have to work after I got married. So my work has been as a professional volunteer, and the fulfillment is amazing.
What is it that women in particular have done to shape this community?
Women do it all. You know, I have a saying, when my kids were growing up and looking to get married and got married, I always tell them that women make the lives, men make the living. And it is true that most men don't have time to volunteer. Most men are they are professionals, they are businessmen, they are working hard. The women make the lives. And of course, nowadays, many young women are professional, many have to work. I still find that in Boca Raton, even with women working, they are still volunteers, which is just amazing. We have a special culture here. We are really special here.
And perhaps envied by other communities, do you find?
I don't know. I really don't know about that.
But in terms of
they
the
make
development
jokes
of
about,
Hadassah-
Boca Raton women or whatever. Boca Raton women, the ones I know, and the ones who are involved with more than just playing cards or whatever, most of them are involved in something. If they're not necessarily volunteers, they are donors. Donating is as important if not more important. And we need the money for all of these projects.
Women were certainly very, very important in developing educational opportunities for children and in setting standards for education, not just within the Jewish community, but in terms of being able to have an impact on the wider community. And I'm thinking about how the Palm Beach County public schools have certainly been impacted by the Jewish community.
That is true. But you know, you made me think of something very interesting, because I know of Henrietta Zold, who was the founder of Hadassah. Henrietta Zold, when she was a young woman, taught the people, the immigrants who came over, not necessarily only Jewish immigrants, but the Jewish ones in particular did speak only Yiddish, or their particular language from their country. And she taught them English. That was a long time ago. We have women like that all through the years who are educators, who teachers are the most wonderful people, actually. I don't know if that answered your question.
In part, because I think that to me, there's a tremendous impact on, I mean, we have the very good fortune of having excellent schools here in Boca Raton and in the wider Palm Beach County as well. But I'm thinking that it's been influenced by the fact that there is a Jewish community here, that there is a very involved parent body.
Because Jewish people are always involved with education and learning, always. It's always been important. To have your child, the next generation, do better than the generation before. And how do you do that? Only by learning and becoming educated.
In your family, you had mentioned that you have a
lot of grandkids. A lot of grandkids. Kenora.
11 grandchildren?
Yes.
And so with 11 grandchildren and different tastes, different desires, different plans for their futures and so on, how would you describe your family as? Are they different kinds of Judaism being practiced?
Yes, there's different kinds of Judaism. I'm very proud of my Orthodox son, very proud of him and his community in Hollywood and Emerald Hills, and his wife and his children who, well, the girls are now married to rabbis, as I said. But I'm also very proud of my middle son, Michael Brauser, who dedicated the Chabad in, it's in one of the Chabads in, right in the Western community here. And my other son, Bob, and his wife, Jackie, started Temple Bat Yam in Fort Lauderdale, maybe 30-something years ago. So yes, my children are involved, and I'm really proud of that.
So they're very involved religiously, but not everybody.
They're not so religious, except the Orthodox person, the Orthodox family. But they are Zionists, all of them, and they are all hard workers. They have that. I think they learned that from my husband.
When you look at what Boca is today, what does it offer for young people? Because when we think about when Boca in the 1970s, a lot of people started to come down here thinking about retirement, and some people, of course, were thinking about business opportunities and professional opportunities in medicine and in law and in accounting and all of this sort of thing. But what was going on with the children wasn't really, today when we look at Boca, and all these years later, it's not just a place to come to retire.
No. It's a vibrant community. We have the Murakami, we have the South County Center where there's always programs, we have museums, we have art galleries, we have so many, we have the Wick Theater, we have so many things going on in Boca. That's why people want to come here.
But what about the children? Is there enough going on to have them stay here?
Oh, of course. Well, children today, once they go to college, may not stay here. But we've been lucky in my family. No, I wouldn't say we've been lucky. Yeah, a number of our children, grandchildren, did go to the University of Florida system, which is a fantastic, now it became a fantastic school system, the University of the universities. But kids today wander. I have one grandchild in California. I have two in New Jersey. Let's see, anywhere else? I can't, there's so many of them I can't think.
Is it, when you think about Boca Raton and what has happened over the years, and I have to ask you, this is kind of a crazy question, but do you think that Seinfeld, the television show, had any impact on the growth of Boca Raton?
Well, tell me, I mean, I may have missed that part where, did they have anything about Boca Raton?
Yes, apparently
did?
Jerry had his parents living in Boca Raton.
Oh, I vaguely remember that. I do. That had nothing to do with people moving to Boca Raton. That was just fun. That was really fun. No, there are so many reasons to live here. It's just, I mean, you just ride down a street and you can see the growth of new shopping centers happening right on Military Trail, where we are now. We're on Military Trail. And there's growth here. There's opportunity here. There's this college that we're at, this Lynn University, which is supposed to be which I know is a wonderful school. I love Boca Raton.
When you think about Boca and what it feels like to be a Jewish community here, what do you see as the future for Boca Raton? Do you think it will...
I see a great future. I see a great future because I see that there are young people who are involved in their synagogues, a lot of young people. I see them involved in their community activities, but in Federation, in National Council of Jewish Women, and Brandeis Women. These are large Jewish organizations with major memberships. And, you know, at a time when they say memberships are, you know, not as much as they used to be, these young people are learning how important it is to support the Jewish community.
Do you have any fear that the Jewish community will disappear because there are so few Jews in the world and to begin with, and because we have so many pressures on the community?
We never disappeared. We never disappeared. Through many centuries of strife, the Jewish community, the Jews will not disappear. Yes, the birth rates amongst Jewish people are lessened. I just have fears of, no, I don't even want to go in that direction. I don't want to have fears. I do believe we will survive.
Why is it so important to you to have a close relationship with Israel?
Oh, God, yes. Well, it wasn't important when I was a girl. I didn't know much about Judaism or Israel when I was a girl. Certainly Israel was not until 1948. But I remember standing on a train platform in 1948, the day after Israel was declared as a state, and seeing a newspaper headline, somebody was holding a newspaper saying, Israel declared a state. And suddenly I said, what is this about? And I started learning. But my biggest learning probably came right after I got married. My husband was born in Europe. My husband was born in Poland. He was saved from the Holocaust. He was very involved. He wanted to live in Israel rather than, he would have been happy to have gone there as a child rather than the United States. So we did a very amazing thing in 1959. That was 1957 rather. In 1957, my husband said to me, now that's 9 years after the state, after 48, my husband said, we have to go to Israel. I said, how can we go to Israel? We have two little babies. He said, we have to go. I have to see it. Well, I made arrangements for my two little babies to be some nurse that I hired, and we flew on a jet plane for 17 hours to see this country that he wanted to see. And we fell in love. But Israel was brown at that time. It wasn't green yet. There wasn't even an airport yet. We walked on the tarmac when we got out. And since that day, we have been such strong Zionists, going back 25 times to Israel. I wish we could go again. My husband and I would love to go again. And because of Israel and because of the people that we have here in Boca and all over the country, the Jewish people, we'll always have Jewish people. We will not let that die.
Did those trips to Israel shape your children's beliefs?
Definitely. Oh, definitely. They've all, as youngsters, our twin grandsons were bar mitzvahed, b'nai mitzvah in Israel, and that was a great experience. Oh, yeah. You have to do that with your children. You have to inculcate that feeling in them. No, they all love Israel.
One last question for you. You have been involved in so many different organizations, and with Hadassah in particular, and the Jewish Federation, and the growth of different organizations within Boca Raton and elsewhere. When you think about the different things that you've been involved in, what is the one thing of which you are most proud?
Well, I'm most proud that I learned not to be afraid. I'm not afraid of speaking. I'm not afraid of learning. I love going to any of these organizations where you have a speaker. There's always something to learn. No, I'm very proud that at 85, I'm 85 years old, that I feel that I was productive in my life. I did not get a salary, but I was productive. And I must have helped many, many people that I'll never meet and that I'll never know, but because of me, they may live better lives. And not only because of me, but because of all people who contribute to causes. And not only Jewish causes. I also contribute to many secular causes, of course.
Okay, that wasn't exactly the last question. What's your big wish for Boca Raton as it goes forward?
Well, I hope they stop building. I do, because the traffic situation is getting a little tough. My big wish for Boca Raton is just to keep going the way it is, that young people keep coming and maybe replacing the older people who either are no longer there or have moved into nursing homes or independent living, as we have just done. That's my big hope, that new people will keep coming, young people who have young ideas. And ideas are changing now. They're not necessarily my ideas, but we'll have to go with the flow.
Thank you so much, Leona. It's a pleasure to talk with you, and I wish you every success with the party you have coming up this weekend and with the many, many new things that are coming into your life.
This was a pleasure for me, too. I did not know what you were going to ask me, but I enjoyed hearing you and speaking.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome.